Hey there YouTube, it's the Cadillac Doctor back again. It's been a long time since my last video. We've recently suffered a failure of the alternator on the 2008 Cadillac DTS. So we're going to change it out today. I'm going to show you how. Let's get started. So these cars are kind of unique in that you have to remove the radiator in order to get the alternator out. The alternator is located down there. So first thing we have to do, take this cover off, drain the radiator. We'll start with that and I'll give you some more details. As you can see underneath the upper radiator cover, we have the condenser, which is just kind of underneath this foam. That's the beginning of the condenser right there. And right behind it we have the radiator. You can separate them. The factory service manual recommends that you take the entire front bumper fascia off. From my recollection, it's not absolutely necessary. We're going to try to avoid it, and I'll show you how to do this without having to recover your air conditioning system, because if you don't have the equipment, that obviously takes money to recharge. So the next thing we'll have to do, take these two braces off, here and here. That's just a 10mm bolt, both sides. And also the upper rad support, which comes all the way over to here. I'll have to take that off because the bolts come out from the back. And we'll take out the upper rad support as well. So as you can see, once I've got the airbox out, we don't need to really go any further. There's the powertrain control module and the main harness that comes from it. It's clipped in right here and it goes through the lower airbox, but we don't have to go any further than that. We can stop right here. We have access to our bolts. Now, as you can see here, I've taken out the bolts that connect this, they call that a carrier. That's a headlight carrier. This piece here goes all the way across. It's right in front of the hood latch, and if I can get you guys a good shot of this, but it's connected. There's a tab there that's braced in, and there are two 10mm head bolts that go in there, two on either side. Those need to be removed so that separates the carrier and this brace. This brace goes all the way down to, can I get you guys a good shot there? Goes all the way down to the lower rad support. And it doesn't actually have to completely come out of the car, but we do need it to be loose from the upper rad support, which is here, and it wraps over the back. So seeing as it wraps over the back, obviously we need to be able to move the upper rad support up out of the way and remove it completely from the car so that we can get this brace at very least loose. Like I said, we don't need to remove the entire front fascia as the service manual says, although it is necessary to have a lot of components just kind of sitting not secured, hardware removed and able to be moved around a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. As you can see, the grill wraps over the top and secures with these little plastic tabs. Those will have to come out as well. And then we're going to go ahead and loosen this carrier off as well. So now that we've got the top of the grille and the top of the front bumper fascia loose from the headlight carrier, so you can see that it just kind of snaps in place. You just kind of pick your fingers under there and lift up, and it's fairly flexible. What we need to do after that, let me get a light for you guys here, and on the other side as well, hopefully you guys can see that, that secures the air conditioning condenser to the radiator. As I mentioned before, we're going to do this job without recovering the AC system or having to recharge it after the fact. That's obviously a significant expense, especially if you don't have the equipment to do so. And hopefully you guys are able to save that bit of money by being able to avoid the expense of having to recover and recharge the air conditioning system during an alternator job. Well, we're going to continue on. The next thing we're going to need to do is raise the front of the car up in the air, put it on jack stands in this particular case. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a hoist anymore. We're going to lift it by the middle of the front subframe, which of course is basically directly under the front emblem, under there. And as I've mentioned in other videos, make sure when you're supporting the front portion of a DTS or STS, General Motors knows them as K bodies, make sure you don't support it by the front pinch welds. Make sure you support it by the frame rails, and I've mentioned why before. Basically, they have a tendency to fold over. They're really soft. They have a tendency to fold over and create a huge gap in between the front doors and the front fenders. Looks really ugly. Obviously, we'll try to preserve these cars and keep them as straight as we can, keep them as presentable as we can. Obviously, they're lovely cars to drive. You guys have probably figured out by now that this particular one and a lot of the other vehicles that I've featured on my channel here are actually my cars. There have been one or two that are not, but this particular one, as you can see, right down the side of it, there's no gap. There's no unnecessary gap in between the front fender and the front door, because I've never lifted this car by the pinch weld. So let's get this car up off the ground. We're going to remove the lower splash panel there and start draining the coolant out of the radiator. Alright, we're back. I've taken the lower splash pan off, disconnected the hardware that holds this onto the lower rad support, and as you can see, I've unhooked it from here. To disconnect that headlight carrier that I was talking about, this guy here, there are two bolts, one on either side, there and there. Don't forget to remove those. That allows the whole thing to move in and out relatively freely, and we can move this around relatively freely. Now, that being said, we can take out the upper rad support. Just kind of straight up, straight out, nothing else is attached to it. And we'll just put it off to the side for the time being. And now, as you can see, we have access to the rad fans, which will be the next thing to be removed. There is one clip right here. I know the lighting's kind of crappy, guys. 10mm bolt just secures the upper transmission cooler line to the radiator. These guys here just kind of pull straight off, and in there is a clip. It kind of looks like an omega sign. They have to be removed. You are going to lose a minor amount of transmission fluid because there is a transmission cooler inside the radiator. Upper and lower must come off, and we will go ahead and remove the upper rad hose, which is right there. There is a kind of a special tool. Some guys like to use pliers, and some folks prefer this tool that I'm going to show you in just a little bit here, because it's a lot less frustrating with these tension clamps. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, a couple of things before I carry on that I wanted to show you. Those are those pliers I was talking about. They're really handy. They have, sorry, I'm just kind of operating with one hand here. They have a couple of slots on the end of the jaws there, and they are very, very handy for squeezing these tension clamps together and them not slipping away and going spring, and you go, oh man, my hand, because you hurt yourself. I don't want anyone to hurt themselves doing anything, but yeah, just one on either end. They fit in there quite nicely. You can generally get these from any major tool supplier, Snap-on, Mac. Gray, I think, makes a set. There's Matco. You know, any automotive specific tool supplier, you can get a set of those. They're really handy. They're not particularly expensive, and guys, they save a whole bunch of frustration. So I'm going to put those off to the side for a sec, and before I carry on, I wanted to show you how to get the condenser free from the rad. So there's those brackets that I showed you before. I've removed those. They're 10 millimeter, and if you see way down there, there's a clip that just kind of cradles the tab on the side of the condenser. Same thing on the other side. Let's see if I can get you guys good. Kind of way down there. I don't know, not sure if you can see it, but yeah, it just kind of sits in there. Like I said, we're not taking the condenser all the way out. The lines are still connected over here on this side. So you just kind of lift it straight up, but keep the rad down. And this is going to be almost impossible for me because, like I said, I only have one hand available because cameras don't hold themselves. But yeah, comes straight up, disconnects itself, and we're just going to kind of let it hang forward. That's going to increase the gap in between the rad and the condenser, and then we're going to carry on with draining the radiator and removing the cooling fans. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys an in-depth view of what some people call Jesus clips, because they go spring, go flying across the room, and you go, oh Jesus. And the problem is they are spring loaded. You be very gentle. You can see I've got all my fingers kind of stopping myself from losing it as I take it off. Just gently coerce it out of there, and they can be very challenging to find after the fact. So that's what they look like. Obviously they actually go back on before you reconnect your transmission cooler lines. I just wanted to make a point of showing you guys these because, like I said, they can be very challenging to find if they're fall down in the engine compartment or sitting on top of the frame or the transmission or whatever. Obviously, while you're working, keep them in a safe place. Keep them in the top of your toolbox or somewhere where you can easily locate them. Once those are out, the transmission cooler lines just kind of wiggle out, and like so. Seal stays in there. There's nothing that should come out with the end of the pipe. Alright, so as you can see, we've got our radiator out, and if you look down there, you can see the alternator. The next step is to indeed remove the alternator. I strongly recommend disconnecting the battery before you take this eyelet off the back of the alternator. That's we don't want to do any unintentional welding. But now that the radiator's out of the way, as you can see, there is more than enough clearance to remove the alternator from the vehicle and put the new one in. So now that we're here, we just need to slack off the tensioner with the 1/2-inch drive square and remove the serpentine belt. So now you can see that there's a large gap where the alternator used to be. It's hard to kind of get my hands in there and give you guys a good view, but Anyway, the alternator is attached with 3 15mm head bolts, one from the front, 2 from the side, just like most alternators, and the typical one plug. As you can see down there, you can see the little orange weather pack seal, and the single eyelet that we mentioned earlier. You definitely don't want to touch that against any other surface. What I've done in this particular case is bandage up the end of it with some electrical tape really thoroughly. Again, we don't want to do any unintentional welding. So we're going to go ahead and put the new one in. So folks, just like any other car, when you buy a new part, make sure you lay them down side by side. Make sure you've got the right one. So you want to look at the overall size, dimension, bolt hole locations. You can see that front hole that we were talking about before. Then we have the bracket down there. Also want to look at the design of the connector. Same connector. And just make sure you're not wasting your time putting something in that's obviously not going to work for you. Just because it's right in the catalog doesn't mean it's right in real life. I've been burned like that a few times before, so I try to avoid that scenario. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and install this new one and pretty much undo everything we've done. Putting everything back together is literally exactly opposite of the way you took it apart. Although I will show you a few small things like those transmission cooler line clips I was talking about before. They can be a little bit finicky to deal with, but overall, fairly straightforward job. So, as you can see, I've replaced the clips that retain the ends of the transmission cooler lines, both sides. Put the clips in, the retaining clips, before you attempt to, I've just dropped my light, before you attempt to snap in the cooler lines themselves. I'll do the first one here and just show you what I mean. Give it a little wiggle and give it a tug. If you can't pull it out, that's a good sign. And then there's a position assurance clip that goes straight over it and clicks into place. So the job's all done, we're all back together. Looks and runs as it should. Belt is running true. The other thing you want to check is get into your dashboard settings there, the information, and make sure your voltage is back up into at least the mid 13 volt range, usually closer to 14. Anyway, job complete. I'm the Cadillac Doctor. See you next time.